Welcome to the second video for section 3.2, and I believe we ended with example number 8. Now this next group talks about f of x is sine of x, g of x is cosine x, and h of x is tangent of x, and we need to find the exact values. And what happens is they give several of the functions. So all we need to really do is to just replace it, and then it becomes similar to problems 1 through 7. So g is the cosine of f inverse would be arc sine of 3/5. And so this becomes problem number 8, adjusting what is given to what we really need to use. First thing, arc sine is positive. So that means it has to be in quadrant 1. That's nice because quadrant 1, everything is positive. So then, since 3/5 is nowhere in our diagram or in our table, we need to draw this. Now sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. And realizing that 3, 4, 5 makes the Pythagorean triple, we have the triangle that we need. So now, once again, we're in quadrant 1, so our all answers are positive, and we need the cosine of this angle. Well, the cosine would be 4/5, and that is the final answer for number 8. Number 9, we start out with f, which is the sine of g inverse. Well, that would be arc cosine of 2/3. First thing we ask, which quadrant are we dealing with? Our cosine is positive in quadrant 1. Quadrant 1's nice. Everything is positive. Looking at the triangle. If cosine is 2/3, that's adjacent over hypotenuse, which means after we do the calculation, the Pythagorean theorem, that becomes the square root of 5. Now, as a result, all we have to do is to find the sine of that angle, which would be opposite over hypotenuse, or square root of 5 over 3. The final example in this particular group would be g inverse, which is arc cosine of f, which is sine of negative pi over 6. Okay, now the first thing we have to do is figure out what is the sine of negative pi over 6. Negative pi over 6 is here in this quadrant with the reference angle of pi over 6. The second for sine is negative. So this is going to become the arc cosine of something negative. What in particular? Well, the sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So now this becomes a separate problem, and we ask ourselves, where is cosine negative? Understanding that arc cosine can only be quadrant 1 or quadrant 2, and so we're talking quadrant 2. And we have this reference angle here, and cosine is equal to 1/2 at pi over 3. But we couldn't care less about this, the name of this angle. We need to know what is that angle called. And that angle is called, if this is pi over 3, this angle has to be 2 pi over 3. And that is the final answer for number 10. The final group of problems are 11 and 12. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not true. We have another group after this. We need to find the exact value. So we're taking the arc cotangent of negative 1. Of course, we're interested in we are going to deal with tangent. Okay, so the first thing we ask is, where is tangent negative? And that's either going to be quadrant 1 or quadrant 4, because that's the range for arc tangent, which means that's the range for arc cotangent. And tangent is negative down here in the 4th quadrant. Then we need to determine where or what angle is it. Well, here we have cotangent is negative 1. That's what we're saying. So the tangent would be the reciprocal. So this is basically saying the reciprocal of -1, but the reciprocal of -1 is -1. So this is what we've been dealing with. The arctangent is negative, and in particular, where does tangent equal 1? That's at the value pi/4. But this angle is not called pi/4 because pi/4 would be up here in quadrant 1. So this is actually called negative pi/4. Example 12. Arc cotangent of the square root of 3. First thing we have to do is get this into usable form. So that would be arctangent of the reciprocal. Well, the reciprocal of 1 over root root 3 is 1 over root 3, or root 3 over 3. Now, we ask ourselves, where's the tangent positive? Well, it's either in quadrant 1 or quadrant 3, but arctangent requires us to go to quadrant 1. So quadrant 1 makes it nice. Everything's positive, so we know our secant will be positive. Then we have to ask, where does the tangent equal root 3 over 3? Well, I believe that would be pi/3. And so we ask ourselves, is this the appropriate name for this angle? Sure, it's the one in standard position, and so the final answer is pi/3. Example 13 will be the final example for this particular section. And it says use a calculator. The calculator simply means plug it in as best as we can and then go from there. First thing we have to do is to convert this into a usable form. So cosecant, the reciprocal is sine. So we're actually going to find the arcsine of -1/4. And then once we plug this into the calculator, the arcsine of -1/4 is -0.25. And we've done everything that I can show.